A very epic sonata to come back to, of course. We were just talking about how wonderful that music is for us. Nonetheless, welcome back, everybody, to XGS. Playday 6, first playday of Week 2. We are in Season 7, and we just watched an excellent game between the Makers and the Fluffy Aimers.
Yeah, now we've got two very hot teams, WILDCARD, ACES, and the UNC'S, which we talked about in our previous pre-show before our first matchup. That the UNC'S not necessarily came out of nowhere, but had a lot of low expectations and essentially blew them out of the water, going so far 3-1. And the one loss was an overtime loss that was relatively surprising. So this, on paper, should be a very hot and very entertaining matchup.
Yeah, taking down teams like Ariel, the likes of the 776, it is a very clear showing that the UNC'S have something to prove. And on the side of WILDCARD Aces, a seasoned team. We know the WILDCARD Aces to be one of, if not some of the best. In my opinion, they're one of my favorite teams to watch. I enjoy them so much. Teddy, Fens, Kronk, Twizzler, Ozone always make it such an entertaining game. But on top of that, so many impressive plays from the likes of them.
Yeah, and on top of that, not only are they entertaining, but they're very unorthodox. And because of that entire playstyle, having players like Fens and Teddy specifically, that's why you have this kind of split you don't necessarily see. Having a more favored attack rather than the defense is not what you necessarily see, especially in this meta. It's more likely of lopsided, especially that defense being so low can hurt them a little bit. But again, going on to their opponents, we've talked so much about them. The UNC'S, Soloris, Scary, Millies, Sta, and Dead. A lot of players that some people, not necessarily gave them the time of light, but they kind of forced their way into the light throughout this group stage. Again, having an above average 52% attacking win rate and then a 60% defensive win rate. Again, a little bit below what we would expect a team of this caliber to have, but nonetheless, again, we've talked so much about them, but we're going to actually have to see what map we're going to.
I don't think we are. I think we're going to miss some. There's something very soon, actually, before that, and that is taking a look at some of the individuals on this team before we head over to that map. More importantly, Scary and Kronk. If anyone was watching last match, we were talking about the strength of the entries, and for this head-to-head, it's going to be the exact same thing. Scary and Kronk are both absolutely insane when it comes to the entry game.
Yeah, just absolutely. And it's very cross-sided. If you see Scary on paper, in the stats are simply just better in the entry department, but the survival rate is just so different compared. Kronk having a much better survivability, and especially if you look at that because, Scary survivability is so low with that 44 and 42 KD, he doesn't really make it to that minute to 30 mark, but it doesn't necessarily matter because his team is there to back him up. He's simply just the defined entry player, and because he has such a good supporting cast, he doesn't really need to have a high survivability for his team to have, a lot of success.
Yeah, consistently on that Ashe, a player that we see very, very attached to that operator for very good reason. Scary with the R4C is really, really good at really just taking the swing and just committing to the fight, and most of the times he wins it out, maybe gets traded. You were talking about the survival rate. Well, Kronk plays operators, if I remember correctly, that lead to more of a little bit of that higher survival percent that we're seeing. He plays picking up operators potentially like the Grim, and maybe putting him on the Ace if need be, of having that AK-12, a gun he can frag out with, but still giving him that utility to go, okay, I'm doing XYZ job with my utility, and then I'm able to swing the angles freely and commit to the fights that I want. So, little differentiation in the playstyles there, but still, both these players are absolute demons when it comes to the gunfights.
Yeah, just having an overall very impactful time on both of their teams. And I think in a best of one, it's very different. I think you have more opportunity to have impact. Just still so sad we won't see you later. But we'll see Consulate again. I believe this is the second or third time we'll see it. This is a map that these players notoriously have, relatively love. Skyscraper, though, very noticeably almost getting through the ban phase, but eventually will be dealt with. So, Consulate, I wouldn't necessarily say it's, what we're used to, but it has worked its way a little bit more into the meta, being played quite a bit more ever since we saw, the major leading into E3.
Same. I don't think I've personally watched a ton of recent Consulate, but I know the games have been happening like you've been saying. There's been a slight uptick in that, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure the reason myself, Goose, of Consulate is a map that to me feels very boxed in, for especially on the side of an attack. It feels very, very hard for the attack to work past a lot of these choke points that the defenders have, whether it be upstairs on admin, maybe that spiral stairs yellow location, or even on the basement. The main breach itself is one of the tightest areas in the history of Siege, and it makes me wonder a little bit how the strategy and playstyles have changed between these teams to kind of push this map into the limelight.
Yeah, the problem with this map is it is very close to Fortress, the map that you see more in casual, because not only are there not a lot of entry points like you just said, but a majority of the entry points, there are so many different avenues and angles for defenders to just completely circumvent and shut down those players being entered. So you do see a little bit of those windows being worked, especially on the top floor site, leading and potentially into the middle floor site. Aside from Archives, it's essentially a site in its completely own, forcing attacking teams to play all 3 floors. A lot of teams and a lot of players do consider this map essentially a fortress. It is just one of, if not the most defender-sided maps throughout the entire game. And because it's so big and so complex, it does really need those really in-depth strats. But not only that, you also need the timing. You know, the walkbacks to site, making sure you don't get cut off from the attacking crosses. It's just a very difficult map overall on both sides to play.
I'd agree with that. I'm so sorry. There was a little bit of an issue with production, some tomfoolery maybe even. But as we get into the bans here, the Monty, we saw that having a large impact the last map, but it's not going to be able to be played this one. Banned as well as the Dokkaebi, pretty common at this point. She's become a staple, much like the Valkyrie that we were talking about on defense. But for the other defensive ban on this map, it's a little bit up in the air. I'd expect to see the Mira maybe, potentially taking the Azami off the board.
Okay.
Huh?
Interesting. I like the theory behind taking away mutes. I think that's kind of one of the operators you ban where you want to specifically give your opponents trouble. It's really one of those operators that you have to ban for a specific play style. It's gonna be questionable. We're gonna see what they really want to do with it, but the UNC'S, they're gonna be going with that try and true Monty and Valkyrie ban, not trying to do anything too different. But on the other side, Wildcard Aces, they're really trying to change the tempo all the way starting in that operator ban phase.
Just saying, maybe they know more than we do. Obviously, these teams are competing at some of the highest levels in Siege, and with that, they're going to do some research into the other teams. So, banning the mute there, maybe there's a pocket strat, maybe a lot of their strategies revolve around bringing that mute to try and control those areas defensively. So, potentially looking to some of the pre-gaming that both these teams have done to try and figure each other out and really just resolve potential threats before they even come their way. The UNC'S, though, starting off here on the top floor. You have the Azami on the board. She wasn't taken out. Scary is going to be playing the Vigil, but no Boss G from him. A lot of Boss G play recently, as most Vigils are bringing it because it has become and always has been a one-tap cannon. As for the side of the Wildcard Aces, pretty standard lineup as well. Trying to control that information game, bringing that Brava, and someone else that's been slotted in pretty commonly lately is the Deimos.
Yeah, but one little curious thing, if you notice that shield all the way over by Soda, and then if you look at the operators, there's no Lamai, there's no Jaeger. And if Wildcard Aces are forced to essentially take that position over by Offices, all they necessarily need to do is just dump some flashes with perhaps maybe a nade, but it doesn't matter because Scary and Dead overswing early on and lose their lives.
Free fire there from Fence to find the head of Scary. Dead, obviously, off on his own time. Good luck, Trex, trying to shut down this run out. Here's the player on the rappel. Gonna hop off, swings, but doesn't catch the timing. The pillar! No, Millies, no, Kronk. To move around that pillar and somehow pick up that kill is ridiculous. Zolaris trying to bring it back in play. Swings the window toward the suicide balcony, and it's not going to work out. Teddy picking up the kill onto Sto as well. Zolaris has one on the round, and he's going to need to find 3, potentially 4 if Kong is picked up here. And the defuse still. So much on his shoulders, and the weight's going to crush him instead. Zolaris going to fall. First round to the Wildcard Aces.
Talk about a heat check from Wildcard Aces. Every single defender that tried to get aggressive early on just absolutely shut down. And you can see, especially with that zombie, just, not really expecting the exact gunfight, being a little bit flustered, getting too overzealous. You can see the aim wasn't all there. And it really sends a message to the UNC'S that you're not going to be able to get away with that. That you're going to have to just simply play to the playstyle of Consulate. You can't play over aggressive. That is the one thing, and yet another thing that makes Consulate very different from other maps is if you as a defender get aggressive, try to go for those rounds or spawn peaks, it's very easily punished, and it's a way that Ubisoft has really created this rework of the map. They've completely just tried to stop plays like those. Just for example, that main run out, just having that squad car right in front of it, just essentially not only stops those runouts but makes it very difficult. So it's those plays that on other maps you could get away with that you're not going to have as much success. And I think UNC'S after that round will more than realize that and play back a little bit more.
Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
We slow down the pace there a little bit, although we say that, and yet here is Scary breaking open a window. Trying to go for more. Gonna catch the red ping. Rotates over, and the Wildcard Aces is looking like their lineup is catered to try and open up this main breach. You have the Thermite, you have the Ash, and more importantly, you have Kronk walking down right next to this team of reinforcements. Don't get spotted out. That Black Mirror is gonna open them right up, and they're caught in no man's land. Walked on through, the headshot from Zolaris. Fens picking up a trade in his own time. That's 0-2 now for Scary on these injuries that we were talking about. Walking up that long haul. Couple of shots from that MPX connecting into Teddy. 60 HP on him. Millie's catching a few rounds himself. And now, the pace that Wildcard Aces have tried to set, so I was going to say is being stalled out a little bit, but it's actually going to be Fens for 2. Main breach open as well. And it's a really interesting situation right now with UNC'S traded out. Saw his shoulder through the pillar there, stuck. Gonna have to go bigger. Dead alone on site. It should be a free plant here for the Wildcard Aces. If not, they should at least be able to walk in. A Nitro Cell right onto the head of Ozone, though. Brings an even game. That one to an effective 2-on-2, but in reality a 2-on-3. If they can pick up Dead here, that might give them the opportunity at least to alleviate some pressure stuff. Creeping all the way through into yellow. Whistler now alone on site. Needs to fetch that diffuser. He fires toward the mirror window, spots the down player behind Pillar, and he's going to pick him up, and there's really not much he can do, though, and Zolaris to finish it off.
Wildcard Aces just going way too fast for their own pace. You can see that they already were right below Archives, and Mira was still putting her black window up, essentially cutting those two players off. But not only that, you saw that first initial player, I believe it might have been Fens, going in for the plant on default bomb, and he didn't even know that there was a Mira right there, especially not only Mira, but a Mira that was electrified, so it clearly wasn't taken out or even identified. They didn't really try to work that vertical from above, so they didn't really push that Mira out of that position. And it's really a round where you can say that Wildcard Aces, they saw a gap, but they didn't try to do a lot after that. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't actually try to work the map. That's what allowed those last two players to hold very true and strong in this position, especially just cutting off every individual gunfight in that last minute 30 onto the players on the side of Wildcard Aces. So it's a round and now back-to-back where both teams have to necessarily go back to the drawing board.
The Aces really tried to set that pace there. You had that Buck and that Sledge work their way down towards server, but the timing on that Black Mirror was perfect to catch them. And now the UNC'S are going to head to the mid-floor instead. Still utilizing that Mira. Still actually going to be picking up the visual this time instead of Scary, and he is going to be bringing the boss Chief. Scary going to calm down a little bit, knowing that went for a couple early kills, and he's going to play on site instead. Lock it down with some of that utility, but for Wildcard Aces, it doesn't look like they might be slowing down the pace at all. In fact, the Amari's already made her way into admin. Teddy should have been heard by this player. Tapcan traps. It's a perfect timing for him. Millies takes Teddy off the board. The breach opened up right behind him, but he's got his teammate here to support him.
I mean, again, it's just wildcard aces. They're just not using their drone economy to its fullest potential. I mean, they still have 6 drones on the board, and you can see there wasn't one drone in front of Teddy, not even Teddy droning himself in whatsoever. So again, it's just wildcard aces trying to take these positions that are so powerful around the map and just not really doing a whole lot. Again, not droning out Dead rather, and Fens, the star player so far in these first couple of entry positions throughout this first half of the map, shut down early on. Not only shut down, but not another trade for it.
They wanted to clear this top floor as Twins into the boss of stun. Whether it was a headshot or a body shot, Twizzler's going to be taken off the board. Kronk, you mind in his ankle, trying to play the trade for his teammate here. Ozone fighting close, SMG-12 not going to do the work. Millie's able to find the trade. It's the pre-fire through the wall to take him down, but still a 3v1. A hefty task here if you're Kronk. Spotted out on the cam, has to go grab the diffuser, but there's nobody contesting him on this top floor. They've instead all rotated back down to just wait for him.
Probably the best operator in the entire game to do this. And not only that, he has those adrenal charges, 2 of them left, a LMG at his hip, and 94 bars of health. He just needs to isolate essentially these last 3 players and try to get that bomb down. There's so much on his to-do list, and he has so little time to do it.
Rotating around toward Visa. Should have heard him on the vert, potentially spotting on the default there. And as much as he has no clue what the defense is, they might not read into this either. He's spotted on the top floor. Default is going to catch him. Capcan Trap's doing work as well, but there's the first adrenal surge. Brings him back into the game. 50 HP, 30 seconds. Has to make a move somewhere. He's not going to clear Spiral here at all. There's no way in the world he does. His head's turned, and what do you even do there, Kronk? Solaris with a Vector. Many shots to his hip.
Wildcard Aces really feeling that pressure on the attack of this consulate defense. And to be fair, it is a lot harder to attack a map when your opponents don't just run out at you and just give you necessarily free kills. And I think that is really just a good way to put it. You know, not only, simply just, putting it very simple, but every single gunfight that the UNC'S don't need to take, they don't. Like Dead all the way in Spiral Stairs. He could have swung that Finka early on, exposing his life, but he waited for the perfect time. I talked about how timing on the defense for Consulate is so important. In these last 2 rounds, the timing of, more specifically, these swings. The UNC'S are forcing every single Wildcard Aces player to put themselves in essentially what is a 1v2 in almost every gunfight they get in, and it just really starts to dwindle down that man count without being able to trade it back. It's a very difficult game to attack if you are Wildcard Aces.
10 seconds left.
And the Aces have been trying to set the pace for the past few rounds here. We saw them move pretty quick round 1. You had that situation with the Mira, but even then, bringing the Amaru and trying to just come in admin super quick. Miller's caught a perfect timing here, and he rotated back. He didn't want to overstay his welcome, and that's something the UNC'S deserve a massive amount of credit for. And Wildcard Aces still just trying to keep that set in stone. And is that a broken Kiva? Can you just not pick that up? Did it deploy on like a micro spec on the ground or something?
Oh, that is just unlucky. That's an unlucky situation there. Lucky for him, though, he's going to have plenty more Kivas to place down. And again, Wildcard Ace is doing a great job of entering the entire building very early on. And they're going to have to drone a little more, and it looks like it's exactly what Twiz is going to be doing now, trying to find a clear path. But the problem throughout this entire map, the entire last 3 rounds, is there has not been a clear path. Benz, they knew about that exact angle, that exact position, but they were never able to clear it out. They try to go past it, try to essentially avoid it, get a quick one on them, but not only that, they're going to start to converge onto the position of the Buck.
That was so smart there from Scary. A good angle, and now the Grimbees are off the board as well. Not a single one used, and as much as they got into the building quickly, it's now up to them to gain some ground. You've lost your first player, you still have those Floyd's drones to put those zombie barricades on site, but you still have so many flame shots to deal with from the Tachanka. And Millie's has made your job a little bit harder once again. You've now lost Kronk as well, the flank wash off the board. Twiz to try and trade things back. Picks up a kill. Still worried about that vertical play. Knowing the roam should be coming soon, but don't know if the Uncs are going to bite.
It's very difficult. Not only are you in a man deficit, but your entire round, half of the round now wasted in this piano position, and no map control really gained for it. It's scary. Not only is he in a good position, but with those fire canisters, it's just going to make it even easier. But it's Mills to eventually deal with them. Backed off of another one by Scary.
Odd timing on that swing there, especially another rough angle too. Yellow locked down by those flame canisters I was talking about. There's really not much Twiz can do here. He's going to throw the flashbang, but it's still not even going to connect. They did such a good job that entire round of completely shutting Wildcard down. They jumped in through closet, Scary had the angle on the vert, and from that point on, they said, okay, we got our pick. We need to do nothing else. They just played the objective, played to their clock, and the Wildcard Aces had no choice but to walk into them. There wasn't really much play on the windows, and even if there was, it was being shut down by the Tachanka, and there was just a brick wall met at every turn. The Uncs didn't give up a single thing there to Wildcard Aces that wasn't necessary to do so, and it really, really shows. I don't know if there was, but I think there was one trade that round from the Uncs themselves. I mean, the Aces, but still, it just speaks to the quality of the game that the Uncs are playing, and more importantly, how they've read into the strategy of the Wildcard Aces really, really quickly into the series.
Yeah, I think that's one underestimated value of the Uncs, is that not only are they able to really give competition to these, high-level teams in the entry department, pretty much meeting every single entry player at every entry point around the map that they tried to go into. They tried to take. You saw Buck being paired by his teammate of Fens. They weren't able to enter the map. They weren't able to take any map control without losing a player untraded for a little while. And it really goes to show that not only the Uncs can they really read and utilize the knowledge of reading the entire playstyle, but they can read pushes and very early on at that.
We're going to get feel for it here again. Young's heading back down to basement. It's an early gunfight for Scary again, this time winning it out. That is Krunk gone, and Wildcard Aces have nobody here to trade him. He was left to his own devices to vault into Scary, and he's going to get really far up on this position and try and keep this space. Opening up the top floor now, working their way down. He's going to vault out instead. Could have maybe caught the timing on the Twizzler there, but the drone isn't going to spot him, and he's going to fall to the wayside. You had that main advantage, and now you've lost it.
That is a very good pick for Wildcard Aces. Not only have you shut down a very hot player in these past couple of rounds, but you finally gotten a trade and not losing another player for getting that trade, and finally evened out the man count, and it lets them essentially do their job, drone out the map, find an avenue, and start to clear that map control without continuing to bleed in that man count. And it just really lets them play simply their game. I mean, every time that Wildcard Aces in previous rounds simply tried to clear the map, simply just tried to play the game, they were just losing players to opponents they didn't even were aware of their positions. And now if you look at the overall player outlines, the Uncs, they've completely vacated this first floor.
Wildcard Aces are spending plenty of time during it out, making sure it is truly fully clear, but that's exactly what we've seen from the Uncs this entire map so far. They said, okay, we got our one, we made some pressure, we created some space, now we fall back. We don't have to give them much of anything. That is playing on the spiral position, trying to lock that down, and the Uncs are still just lying in wake. Wildcard working the vertical. Haven't cleared any of the utility on site, and a nice angle through the hatch. Ramillies takes down Fence. Teddy on the side of main, trying to maybe push down spiral here, and he's going to meet crosshairs of dead if he does. But for him and for Twiz, they are running out of time, and more importantly, running out of options. It's looking like the hatch drop might have to be the play here. The Grimbees should spot this player out in the kitchen, but they don't have an alternative entry point to go through. Crossfire set up across the entire objective. Millie's took the toward yellow. You have dead locking down spiral, and now I'm going to burn their clock before it gets too close.
A very difficult position at that. Absolutely no entry points. They're going to bring out these smokes to try to find a way into the bomb site. But it's Soloris to shut down Twist, and now it's all up El Jefe and Teddy. El Jefe gets one onto Soloris, but Mills shuts down Teddy. It's all up Ozone. Now 1v3. No time left on the clock. He's able to get one onto dead. but it's simply going to be an exit frag, another one. But the last player on the UNC'S, they realize the position they are and goes for the far and hides his life and saves the round, and the UNC'S go up 4-1.
A little bit too close for comfort there if I'm the UNC'S. That had me scared, I won't lie. I was like, oh, Ozone can do his best. This is going to be really rough to win, though. There's a chance. He picks up one, he picks up two. Okay, the third is there. And then by literally inches as he creeps around that doorway is how close to the mark of losing that round was for the UNC'S. But once again, their strategy is set in stone. They create so much pressure with just one player. It was scary on that floor as he got that opening pick, lost his life to Twiz on the trade. But from that point on, Wildcard Aces were so worried about that mid-floor player kind of replacing that spot like we've seen them do, playing those trades onto Wildcard Aces. And instead, there was just no one to be found. They burned their own clock. They eventually started working the vertical, but by that point, it was too late, and they're scrambling to drop into the objective right into the guns of the UNC'S.
Wildcard Aces, in their very first, or very last, rather, attacking round, the best they can get is a 4-2 half, which is relatively what is expected. And they've came into the problem of attacking Console. The first 2 rounds, they really realized that, Console overall, you do need to play very slow, do your due diligence, and they wanted to completely circumvent that. They wanted to go really fast. Had success in the first round, but ever since then, didn't have success. After they lost 2 rounds after the first, they realized, okay, we need to go back, we need to start playing slow, doing our due diligence, clearing the map. But they ran into what is many consider the main problem of, because Consulate is such a big map, you have to drain so much time, so much attacking utility, and by the time you can get close to the site, it's all gone. And it doesn't help if you have like a player like Scary who continues to get these entry kills in the exact same position the round he did before.
Fulfilling the entry prophecy almost. Now 5-3 for him, but still taking those entry duels and just trying to make sure that the pressure is on for the Wildcard Aces. Some pressure being felt toward the top floor. That kill box breach is going to be open. So he is playing the game. Potential for him here to open up an opportunity to fight upstairs. And there's 2 players upstairs, and I think that only leaves 1 remaining on the objective itself. If the Wildcard Aces can get a heads-up play going here to realize how open the site potentially is, it could be massive for them, especially with some of that pressure being removed from the top floor, as Twiz is going to take him out.
There's just only 1 player, and if you look at the bomb, it's starting to go down. But the guns from the UNC'S, they ring out. Twiz looking for yet another.
Oh my god. Stuz prone on the floor, and it's going to be an absolute slaughter in the objective in the meantime while that fight was happening upstairs. Teddy walking through the breach. The shots don't connect from Scary, but fortunately he gets up and swings just in time. Close enough to stop him down. Just barely peeking through that breach hole. Close for the UNC'S, but still, they win the round.
This is the problem with Consulate, is it falls into that very old playstyle of, if you take a team to this map, and the Wildcard Aces did in fact take the UNC'S to this map, having the last ban in the ban phase, and that allowed the UNC'S to go into defense first. And that's why a lot of the time you do see these 5-1 deficits to start out games. And the problem with that is Consulate, like Border, is essentially a map where you have to go with a relatively strong and consistent game plan on the attack, because if you don't, just like we see here, you'll fall down to that 5-1 deficit. And no matter how good you are on the defense, all they have to do is win 2 attacks. And now Wildcard Aces potentially have and are in the same position to do exactly what the UNC'S did to them. But just looking at the overall play style and the contrast, especially in these last couple of rounds, and how they've just completely let Scary run under the radar of their drone intel, I don't think it's going to be relatively that easy for them translating into the second half.
5 seconds left before insertion.
Top of that too, the Wildcard Aces are going to have to completely change their perspective on the gunfights themselves. We were talking about how it's been hard for them to find trades throughout this map so far, and now that you're on the defense, do you extend that roam further like the UNC'S did, and do you find that supporting cast to assist that roam? For the UNC'S, they usually had 1 player, Scary, kind of on his own time, looking for a pick, and then if he died, it was okay, but Wildcard Aces, once they get on that back foot in the player count, I don't know if the mentality shift, I don't know if it's their actual playstyle itself, but they seem to struggle and slow down a lot when it comes in terms of taking space or holding on to space. And so for these defensive positions, do you allow that roam game to thrive, or do you instead bunker down on the objective? And it seems that some head holes from the objective on that vert from Ozone are going to show us the answer.
The UNC'S not letting up whatsoever, trying to challenge every single entry point, and even translating onto the attack. And so far, it has not bode so well for them. And if you look at this overall lineup in this Amaru going to the site, they're simply going to try to just palm off, but jumping out will simply just bait that Thorn, bait the overall entry point. They may not be aware of the echo.
There's so much stall utility. 2 times now, Dead has tried to do that. First stop by a Thorn canister. Second stop by a Smoke canister. And Twizzler's now going to take out Scary. Billy's trying to work the vertical, making sure this thing can go down. Potentially trying to find the gap in the Wildcard Aces defense here, but there seems to be none. Third time he's vaulted through the doorway now. Instead, he's just going to choose to swing. The Smoke canister is not going to have the impact, but Teddy's going to find his head. And now that's Diffuser stranded in the middle of the objective. You have to wide swing to get it. Millie's isn't even upstairs with you on the rappel. You're trying to work that. Creeping up yellow. Zombie barricade in his face. He has no tally on where any of these defenders are so far. He's just going to hold the window. The headshot from Millie's on to Crunk. Forced to vault in. The nade should make noise for him in time. Swings in. Bailiff in hand. Pre-fire from the T5 though. Teddy and Fence. Wildcard Aces to grab their first round in a while to try and keep this game alive.
The Wildcard Ace is essentially saying the UNC'S rather, just essentially saying exactly what Wildcard Aces tried in their very first attacking round. Just trying to ignore the entirety of Consulate, just trying to find a quick avenue into the site. And they simply just burn time. Because, you know, on the other points of the map, the other operators that weren't the Amaru in the Grim on the window, you simply had players just losing their gunfights, and it just put that Amaru, put that Grim in such a bad place, forcing them to go for those picks, opting out of that plant. And I understand it. And Consulate, the reason is so difficult to attack, not only because of how big it is, not only because of how much utility you drain, it also drains your mental. There's not really ever a chance to breathe in the early round when you try to work the map. If you're an attacking team, you always have to be going. You always have to be active, because not only do you have to worry about the entirety of the map, you also got to worry about the 5 defenders that you're trying to kill on top of it. It's really like the saying of the 6th man is the timer for defense. For Consulate, there's 7, that being the map itself.
Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
And with this lead, it gives the UNC'S a couple of opportunities to kind of make those mistakes, though. Of course, you don't want to give rounds up that you could have won, but still, that round shows a lot to the UNC'S that, okay, the Aces are playing pretty similar to what we did. They had that little bit of early aggression, took those early fights, and now all they had to do was wait for us. Dead really struggled to get in there because the smoke canister was great utility setup, but it revealed a lot for the UNC'S on how they want to play this. Top floor going to be the area of the attack, even though the site is on the bottom. Making sure you have those due diligence, clearing those roamers out early so you can afford to kind of hold on to the space that this map forces you to take if you're the attack.
I really like what they've done here, essentially just sending Scary up. Every time I see Scary get a kill, he's shooting someone's body. It's just so funny. But I really love that they essentially have just sent Scary, sent Sta to the top floor and say, all right, clear it, deal with it, this is your problem. The rest of us will deal with the rest of the map and do our own thing. And on top of that, Ben's almost getting a nice pick, but it's going to be Scary to get his 2nd for the round.
I saw the dream. I saw the dream with the boss G. I really did. It was so close. That would have been a crazy shot, too. The impact into the swing. Nonetheless, it's now a 2-man advantage here for the UNC'S. And they're going to do what we've seen many teams do now, which is just call a reset, especially on this map. Okay, we've cleared what we think to be the rest of the roamers, but now we got to make sure that that's the case. Teddy, up in the face of Scary on those yellow stairs, is able to kind of trade it back. Picks up 1, still has to worry about the vertical now being opened up by the Ram, though. Those boogies are going to make the top floor above them a very, very dangerous place.
Just, again, that time is starting to dwindle down. And these 3 players, sure, they're in a deficit, but they become scarier and more powerful as that timer starts to tick down. Solaris trying to deal with Teddy, and eventually he's able to deal down. A minute left on the clock. Still trying to get this wall open. Now it's all off the Kronk.
And he's kind of stranded all the way in the depths of the belly of the beast here. Dual objectives away. Catches the Deimos through that mirror window. He's going to connect the shot with him, but also take one in turn. 79 HP. Diffuser should go down here without an issue. Both these mirror windows open, and in reality, it's just too many angles for him here. The wildcard ACES now being put on match point by the UNC'S.
I was really worried taking UNC'S to a consulate. And, you know, on the contrary, if you're wildcard ACES, if you're taking yourself to consulate, you should have a good game plan. But throughout these 8 rounds that we've watched, it doesn't really look like, not necessarily they have a great idea on how to play consulate, but they don't have a great idea on how to really deal on how the UNC'S are playing consulate. The UNC'S are putting up pretty much what is close to a perfect way to play consulate. They just really know how to use the map to its fullest potential. They know how to set up the perfect crosses, and they know how to read an entire defense on top of an attack. And it really goes just to show not only the team play and the cohesion that, you know, a team like the UNC'S have, but the individuality of the players to read these certain situations, specifically Scary getting those first 2 entry picks. I really do think if wildcard ACES want to try to turn the tide of this matchup, they really need to start in that entry department.
10 seconds to insertion.
Yeah, and we kind of did the comparison earlier between Scary and Kronk, and unfortunately here for Kronk, he's not showing up that much when it comes in terms of entry. On the cap can right now, most likely going to be roaming up here to try and play off these traps, but still 3 and 7, hoping to see just a little bit more impact from him here, especially knowing what he can do and the potential all of these wildcard ACES players have. It just feels like they're really disconjointed from the strategy that the UNC'S is using right now and are getting really caught off guard by even some simple things. But going to be another top-down take here for the UNC'S. Fenn's been catching all sorts of audio from the side of Yellow, and he's going to want to get aggressive on it. He's close with the SMG-11, catches him on the rappel, but he's got a trek back to make if he wants to stay safe. Spots another on the rappel. It's 2 shots from the Deimos. Swings on the drive, close on the pillar. He's stranded in no man's land. His teammate helping him, though, from the windows. 2 picks for the price of 1, make it 3 now as Teddy's going to swing out, and the UNC'S are in a dire situation as the wildcard ACES are looking like a different team as I was saying that.
Scary, though, has found his way into Yellow. I don't even know. He just walked out the Yellow stairs, potentially finding a gap there. But now, Scary and Dead in what is a little bit of a better situation. But not only do you have to worry about these last 3 players, you have a mirror wall in between a rock and a hard place. It's just so much utility, so many player positions to deal with. And on top of that, he's retaking control of Yellow.
Couple of shots caught by the R4C. Twiz and Teddy now both on only 32 HP though. And if Ash is holding on to some more breaching rounds, these mirror windows shouldn't be much of an issue for them. There is the issue of the nitro cell in pocket though. And the world stands still. Patience and diligence from both of these teams right now.
Minute 13, again, it's just really Scary and Dead. They're very scared. They don't have a great idea of what they want to do here. They don't have 100% an idea of the positions of these last 3 defenders. 2 of them very low on health, but again, Scary. All they know really right now is that there is a mirror behind that black wall. For now, it's simply just going to be swinging and baiting, hoping someone swings out, and it's Twiz to swing out and give an opening.
They're going to have to make the most of it. Like I said, Teddy so low on the HP department. Scary on 12 himself, though, and he's going to have to know this player is playing Pillar, and he's not going to have any clue. Teddy shoots Scary in the head. Dead walks in the meantime, and the mirror window that was yet to be dealt with by that breaching round is going to have so much impact into that round.
I talked about entry game and how wildcard ACES needed to focus on that. And having a Solus jumping out of a window, that's going to help. And I think that's exactly what wildcard ACES needed in that round. And we've seen time and time before that plays like this are not a consistent answer to really playing up against an aggressive attacking team. And it's simply going to be one of those rounds where it's good for the mental. I don't think this is going to be a consistent idea that Wildcard Aces are going to be able to run with to potentially bring back this map and win it in overtime. Sure, you could get 1 or 2 more rounds back off of it, but I do think you need a more consistent and more hardened play style to prop up a lot of difficult positions. And Twiz, setting up that exact, line of sight onto that little closet area, it's a perfect example of what they need to do. They just really need to force these entry attackers into very awkward positions. Time and time again, you see Scary not only force himself to get these picks, but they're in very comfortable positions. The positions where he feels relatively safe. He has a good knowledge that of the positions of the players around them. We saw in that round where the Uncs didn't have great knowledge. They did have a lot of trouble really getting their way into the map.
This is so smart here from Wildcard. On this top floor last time, there was a huge struggle with Amaru to try and even get into the building, and a disgusting angle this time from Fens to kill Zolaris. That is such a massive pick. The Ash gone. If there were Black Mirrors on the board, they would be safe, but more importantly, what I was talking about is that they've realized that there's no way in the world they go for that plant on that window again unless absolutely necessary. So there was 3 wildcard players rotated over to the side of admin instead to lock that down. Beautiful stuff from them, and more importantly, a very great opening pick to put the Uncs very, very close.
Yeah, and not only that, but Wildcard Aces, they found a way to just not only solidify that pick, but on the Uncs, they haven't been able to trade it back. And on top of that, they haven't been able to get relatively any map control. Ozone getting a little bit aggressive there. He's going to opt to play back. And look at that. The Wildcard Aces still have control of office and backside, and this is going to continue to give even more difficulty. And Teddy just jumps outside of a window.
It's another around the world for the defense here. Unfortunately, that world is not going to be big enough for Scary, as he's going to catch him as he comes around the corner. A little bit of a trade back, but still. He's ran outside the building again, although Sta able to even out. Quick trade from Fence, though. That MP5 proving him good as he catches a crossfire onto Dead. He's going to rotate all the way back to block. He doesn't want to give up too much space. Knows that he did his job, got his trade back, and that's something the Wildcard Aces are finally latching onto. We talked about how the Uncs were so good on their defense because of their ability to find trades. And the Aces here, it's the same thing. Ozone, maybe EMP, but he simply doesn't care. Swings the doorway and pre-fires Sta into next week. Scary. Injuries so far. The man of the hour when it comes to frags. Nice shot on the Kronk. Goes the Echo spraying from the other door. Oh, unfortunate. Flashbang. This crosser was in the right place at the right time, and it's still not going to be enough. Timer working against him. Rough angle, except not for Ozone. Scary's going to fall, and the Wildcard Aces remain in this game.
That is a really great round for Wildcard Aces, because not only do they get to stay in the game, but they found a way to really push back that aggressive entry attack without forcing players to jump out of windows for the first pick. We still had a player, the twist, or actually it was Teddy on the Solus that time, jumping out of the window. But again, it's just really propping up these unexpected angles. And again, putting the Uncs in very uncomfortable positions, but not only uncomfortable positions, but positions where they're not even aware that they're uncomfortable.
What a
they
shot,
it really, it is. And it's one of those situations where it's like, if you're not aware that you're in an uncomfortable position and you have that false sense of security, that really gives all the power to your opponent that is swinging you. And I think that is exactly how the Uncs played on their defense, and I think that's exactly the winning formula that Wildcard Aces continue and need to play into if they want to potentially put us into an overtime.
10 seconds to insertion.
They're starting getting a little bit closer. Fence
5 seconds
hiding
to go.
all the way downstairs, trying to avoid the drones. The first time the Pulse has been brought on this map so far.
The bomb.
And more importantly, great adaptations here. I think last time this site was played, there was a little bit of an issue of the attack kind of walking in and taking space on that main side and allow them to get very close to the objective and kind of put a lot of heavy pressure and start boxing these defenders very, very quickly. So having that Pulse hiding downstairs, trying to make sure he isn't spotted, means that a Nitro cell later in this round are huge. As for the Uncs themselves, opening up that garage breach, maybe clearing the basement, moreover, probably just clearing that garage side for now, and then obviously working their ways in towards main and potentially towards Visa as well.
Necessarily the problem isn't, getting those trade packs, getting...
Oh.
Wow. Are you kidding me? Not only do you let Wildcard Aces players jump out of a window 2 times, but you want to do them a 3rd and get 2 untraded, and you're running into cap can traps. Everything going wrong for the UNC'S is a recipe for success for Wildcard Aces on this second half of Consulate.
That's about as poor of a start of a round as you can have, honestly. That is really, really rough watch for them. Not only did they let Teddy jump out, which... ridiculous, by the way. I think the windows are currently the best friends of the Wildcard Aces defense strategy because it has worked consistently now for 2 to 3 rounds in a row, but you're now just put in an almost unwinnable position. Your Ram is in basement, there's no working the vertical, and now has fallen to the vertical itself, actually, so if you're Millie's, you're just looking for a pick. Finds the head of Twizzler, Nitro cell down yellow, might be able to get the skill on the pulse, it's a nice swing, making sure... we're absolutely sure that Fens is dead there. Important tactical setup. Nonetheless, though, he's brought it into a 1v2, but not at the cost of most of his HP, and he still doesn't have a hold of the diffuser.
Not only that, but he doesn't really have a safe way into the bomb site. Sure, he could go to a point on the other side of the map, but with that timer ticking down, he has to really take into account that he has to try to play the time into his favor, which in turn plays in favor of Wildcard Aces.
Audio cue comes through these hopped-in closets. Not worried about the footholds, instead worried about the foot. They filmed this angle last time. Spots him out. Pre-fires the wrong one, though. Ozone's just a little bit deeper than he expected. And the Wildcard Aces, who were on death's door, are now seemingly turning their locks and flipping over their doormats.
I talked specifically on how a 5-1 deficit is just essentially looking into the abyss of the void. It is not necessarily near impossible, but not very probable. And the way, wow, the pixel there, oh my god, that's disgusting. And if you see these positions like Millie's, where they're able to eventually get these trade backs, but where they're able to get these trade backs, where they're able to really dwindle down the man count, it shows that the UNC'S still have some control. They still have an opening to shut these rounds out, and that's a very scary factor that I'm worried about Wildcard Aces. Because all the UNC'S need is one opportunity, one 1v2, one even 1v1, and that's the entirety of this matchup over. The Wildcard Aces don't have that 6-5. They need this round. The UNC'S, they can play a little bit more loosely and potentially get more openings when they potentially might not have many.
Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
For Wildcard Aces, you've now brought this game so close, and the UNC'S want to finish this out in regulation. They don't want to worry about overtime. They don't want to worry about swapping sides. They want to close this out in regulation. But I hope this time they are being a little bit more aware of the windows that have ever proven such an ailment to their attacking strategy so far, and it seems that they have. Stacking up toward this garage side, the Rams should be going in that main door, trying to work that vertical later into the round. But so far,